In the past few years, something major has changed in how the United States approaches the rest of the world. Specifically, we have seen a dramatic drop in U.S. foreign aid. Under the Trump administration, funding for foreign assistance went from about $40 to $50 billion each year to just over $1 billion. That is a decrease of nearly 98%. To put it in perspective, in 2024, the U.S. government planned to spend around $849 billion on defense alone. The total federal budget was about $6.75 trillion. Cutting foreign aid to such a small amount sends a clear message. This video takes a closer look at why the Trump administration made these cuts, what ideological and political thinking guided the decisions, and what it all means for the United States' role in global politics. We will also consider whether this shift signals a return to an earlier period in U.S. history, when the country focused more on internal affairs and became far less involved in promoting democracy worldwide. Why the cuts? What was behind the shift? The Trump administration strongly believed that foreign aid was not giving the United States a good return. Officials argued that much of the aid was going to countries that were either ungrateful or even openly hostile to U.S. interests. In one speech, President Trump said, "We are giving billions and billions of dollars to countries that hate us." That idea fit into the broader America First policy. The administration viewed foreign aid not as a strategic tool, but as a form of charity that America could no longer afford. According to Trump and his team, too many programs funded by USAID did little to protect American interests. Some were labeled as wasteful, politically driven, or mismanaged. This was not a new debate. Critics of foreign aid, especially from conservative groups, had argued for years that it was too expensive and poorly targeted. In fact, public opinion polls have shown that many Americans believe foreign aid takes up a large share of the federal budget. They often guess between 10% and 25%. The truth is, even before the Trump-era cuts, foreign aid accounted for less than 1% of total spending. By making these cuts, Trump was not just changing policy. He was tapping into a long-standing frustration and skepticism that already existed among many voters. The message was simple and politically effective. The U.S. should stop helping others and take care of its own people first. Targeting DEI programs. Another major part of this shift involved opposition to diversity, equity, and inclusion, often referred to as DEI. The Trump administration viewed DEI programs as politically biased and ideologically extreme. In 2025, President Trump signed an executive order to remove DEI's foreign service. He argued that hiring and promotions in government should be based strictly on merit, not on race, gender, or other identity categories. Trump claimed that DEI had become a form of discrimination, favoring certain groups over others. This position also affected foreign assistance. When the administration allowed limited emergency aid during the budget freeze, they made sure to exclude any projects related to gender equality, LGBTQ+ inclusion, or racial equity. In effect, programs that focused on human rights, empowerment, or inclusive governance were defunded. The Trump team believed these efforts reflected a liberal agenda that did not serve American national interests. From their perspective, American taxpayers should not have to support cultural or social initiatives overseas unless they had a direct connection to national security or economic growth. Turning inward, a focus on the Western Hemisphere. The foreign aid cuts were part of a larger shift in U.S. foreign policy. Instead of maintaining a global leadership role, the Trump administration placed more emphasis on domestic priorities and issues in the Western Hemisphere. There was a renewed focus on topics like immigration enforcement, economic recovery, and border security. When aid was offered to Latin American countries, it often came with specific conditions. For instance, governments were expected to help stop migration flows toward the U.S. border or risk losing U.S. support. Critics argued that this approach ignored root causes such as poverty, violence, and environmental pressures, which are key drivers of migration. They warned that simply applying pressure without addressing these issues would lead to more instability, not less. At the same time, the administration continued to fund military and security programs that aligned with U.S. interests. But civilian development projects like those related to education, health, and democracy were either slashed or eliminated. This marked a clear break from the earlier model of soft power, which focused on building long-term relationships through diplomacy and development. From soft power to transactional. For decades, U.S. foreign policy had emphasized soft power. That meant influencing others through attraction, cooperation, and shared values. Cultural exchanges, educational programs, and humanitarian aid were central tools of American diplomacy. The Trump administration, however, shifted toward a more transactional approach. Foreign aid and diplomacy were reframed as business deals. If another country wanted help from the United States, it had to offer something in return. This thinking affected how the U.S. dealt with long-standing alliances. NATO countries were told to contribute more money to their own defense or risk losing American support. In Africa and Southeast Asia, as U.S. funding declined, other countries stepped in to fill the gap. China, for example, expanded its Belt and Road Initiative. Through infrastructure loans and trade deals, it quickly became a key partner for many countries that once relied on American aid. These countries now had a choice between U.S. pressure and Chinese investment with fewer conditions. As a result, the reputation of the United States as a reliable global partner began to decline. When aid disappears, so does trust. In many places, America was no longer seen as a dependable or generous ally. Conclusion: the Trump administration's approach to foreign aid and DEI programs marked a major turning point in American foreign policy. What had long been seen as essential tools of influence were recast as wasteful or ideological. This shift went far beyond budget cuts. It reflected a change in how the U.S. sees its role in the world. Instead of acting as a global leader that builds partnerships and promotes shared values, the U.S. became more focused on immediate benefits and strategic bargaining. This created space for other countries to gain influence, and it left many longtime partners uncertain about the future of their relationships with the U.S. Whether this shift is temporary or permanent remains to be seen. Future administrations may choose to rebuild America's soft power, or they may continue down the path of transactional diplomacy. Either way, the decisions made during this period have reshaped how the world sees the United States and raised important questions about what kind of power it wants to be in the years ahead.